Some trips are meant to be unforgettable. A weekend in the woods, a peaceful stay in a quiet cottage. What could go wrong? But sometimes, the unknown waits in the shadows, watching, waiting. And when it finally shows itself, it's already too late. Tonight, we bring you two terrifying stories. One of a camping trip that took a sinister turn deep in the wilderness, and another of a girl who thought she was alone in an isolated cottage until she realized something was living there with her. Lock your doors, turn down the lights, and get ready for two tales that will haunt your thoughts long after they end. The cottage was supposed to be a place of peace, a quiet escape from the world. Isolated, surrounded by endless trees, it felt like a dream. But for Emily, that dream curdled into something far worse. It started with small things: a door left open, the soft sound of footsteps when she was alone. She told herself it was nothing. The mind plays tricks in the silence, but silence doesn't breathe. And when the sun dipped below the horizon, she realized the truth. She wasn't alone. Something had been waiting for her all along.
When I was in my late teens, I received an inheritance after my father's tragic passing. At the time of his death, my parents owned a cabin near Mount Bachelor in Oregon. Since my mother couldn't afford the payments anymore and renting it out wasn't covering the costs, the cabin was put up for sale. It was set to go on the market in less than a month, and while the paperwork was being finalized, it remained vacant. Seeing an opportunity to escape for a bit and clear my mind, I quit my job, packed my snowboarding gear, grabbed my dog, Midnight, and drove up to the cabin in my dad's car. The first couple of days were uneventful. I spent my time playing in the snow with Midnight, snowboarding, and unwinding in the evenings with video games, music, drinks, and cigarettes on the balcony. I had stocked up on supplies, so aside from occasional trips to the slopes, I kept to myself. The solitude was comforting, and I began to feel more at peace. The cabin had 2 floors. The first level housed the living room, a small kitchen, and a guest bedroom, while the second floor had 2 additional bedrooms and a balcony attached to the master bedroom. I mainly stayed in the living room, kitchen, and my bedroom, keeping the doors to the other rooms closed. On the 3rd day, heavy snowfall kept me indoors, and that's when things started to feel off. Our cabin was relatively secluded, with only 2 other cabins nearby, both of which were empty. The next closest cabins were about a mile away, surrounded by dense forest and towering pine trees. Around midday, while outside with Midnight, I noticed footprints in the snow around the cabin. The snowfall was fresh, so the prints couldn't have been more than 20-30 minutes old. I figured someone might have been staying in one of the nearby cabins without me realizing it, but the tracks led away from my cabin and disappeared into the trees. Shrugging it off, I went back inside. That night, as I was lying in bed, Midnight suddenly perked up, his ears alert. Without hesitation, he leapt off the bed and bolted downstairs to the living room. I stayed quiet, listening, my heart pounding. I could hear him pacing back and forth before he ran back upstairs, nudging me urgently to take him outside. Reluctantly, I took him to the driveway, but instead of doing his business, he started pulling at his leash, trying to lead me toward the tree line where I had seen the footprints earlier. He also kept sniffing along the side of the cabin and looking up at the roof. His behavior was unsettling, but I wasn't about to follow him into the woods at night. I dragged him back inside and locked the doors. About half an hour later, I was in bed when I heard a series of deliberate, heavy steps on the roof. 6 distinct thuds. I tried to rationalize it as a pine cone falling or some animal scurrying across, but the spacing of the steps felt human. Midnight heard it too and ran to the balcony door, his tail stiff, ears forward. Determined to prove myself wrong, I grabbed my coat, shoes, cigarettes, and a flashlight before stepping onto the balcony. I scanned the roof, nothing. The fresh snow was undisturbed. Maybe it was all in my head. I took a deep breath and leaned against the railing, watching the stars and the trees. Then I saw it. In a tall tree about 20 feet from the balcony, something was perched between 2 branches. It looked human, but wasn't. It was impossibly tall, at least 8 or 9 feet. unnaturally thin, with sickly pale skin. It crouched low, gripping the branch above with long, spindly arms. Its face was expressionless, mouth wide open. I couldn't move. Midnight paced behind me, growling. The thing remained motionless. Every instinct screamed at me not to shine my flashlight on it. Instead, I slowly backed into the cabin, dragging Midnight with me. Once inside, I locked the door and finally shone my light at the tree. It was gone. I yanked the curtain shut and lay in bed, my heart hammering in my chest. Then, around 3 a.m., a slow, deliberate tapping started at the glass balcony door. It was steady, rhythmic, like fingers drumming lightly against the glass. It went on for nearly an hour. Midnight stared at the door but refused to go near it. The strangest part? I had the overwhelming urge to open the door, as if something was calling me to do it. But at the same time, I could hear my dad's voice in my head, warning me, "Stay in bed, don't do it." I listened to that voice. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I passed out. The moment daylight broke, I packed my things and left, not stopping until I was far, far away from that cabin. And sure enough, my back passenger side tire had a deep slash in it. It wasn't just a small puncture, it was deliberate. My heart was racing. I looked around, but there weren't any cars pulled over near us. Still, the idea that Melvin, or whoever he really was, could be lurking somewhere nearby sent a chill down my spine.
When my cousin Cody and I were in our early 20s, we took a few camping trips around Colorado. This particular trip happened when I was 22 and he was 23 in Arapahoe Forest. It was my first time camping there. Cody, on the other hand, was familiar with it. It was the middle of the week. Our jobs gave us random weekdays off, so we camped then to avoid traffic and crowds. I always let Cody take charge on these trips. He was the Eagle Scout, not me. We parked near a picnic area and hiked into the woods. About 15 minutes in, we found a good spot, a clearing big enough for our 2 tents, a portable stove, and a campfire. First, we set up our tents. Cody, being the pro, pitched his in minutes. Me? It always took 20 plus, not that it matters anymore. I haven't camped in the wilderness since. Next, we built a fire ring and gathered wood. Cody had fire starter and a lighter. So yeah, we kind of cheated. By then the sun was setting. We had a fire going, and Cody was grilling steak and burgers. He always went all out with food on these trips, and he was a damn good cook. I let him handle feeding us. Of course, we had bear spray just in case, but Cody always said black bears weren't the real concern. The thing you gotta worry about in the woods, he'd say, is other people. As we ate, we cracked open some beers and played classic rock on a speaker. If you've never been camping, you don't get how perfect moments like that are. Just you, the world, and a friend reminiscing and vibing to music. As night fell, we set up a little table and played cards. We started with traditional games, then moved to Uno. That's when we heard it. I paused the music, humming, and footsteps. Someone was out there, just beyond the trees, in the pitch-black forest. Cody whispered for me to grab the flashlight. I fumbled for it, but by the time I found it, the sounds had faded. I asked if we should be worried. He hesitated. It's unusual. Someone this deep in the woods, humming? We were both shaken. We lowered the music and kept playing cards. Then, a stick landed in the middle of our campsite. It didn't fall, it was thrown. Cody jumped up, yelling into the trees, "Whoever's out there, get a life and flick off." More footsteps, fading, walking away. I wanted to pack up and move. Cody said absolutely not in the dark. We both had bear spray. He told me to keep it close when we slept. But the noises didn't stop. Branches cracking. Not animal sounds, human ones. Someone was out there, maybe multiple people. We had to sleep eventually, so we agreed to take turns keeping watch. Cody went first, reading his book while I crawled into my tent. Waking up in the middle of the night while camping is normal. It's cold, uncomfortable. But this time, something was wrong. I opened my eyes. There was a head peering into my tent. Cody, I rubbed my eyes, but the darkness made it impossible to see details. Groggily, I muttered, "Is it my turn?" The head didn't move. Then, zip! The tent closed. I laid back down, half asleep. But then, a sudden clarity hit me. I bolted upright, listening. Footsteps. Walking away. "Cody?" I whispered. No answer. I unzipped my tent. The fire was dead. Cody wasn't out there. I rushed to his tent, unzipped it. He was fast asleep. My stomach dropped. My whole body went cold. I shook him awake. "Someone's here," I whispered. It took him a moment to process. Then he grabbed his bear spray. He had dozed off while reading. He told me to sleep in his tent, but I needed my sleeping bag. As I grabbed it, I heard it again. That goddamn humming. Cody whispered, "Hurry up." "You hear that too?" Yes. We zipped ourselves inside his tent, bear spray at the ready. I tell you, at that moment, I wanted a bear to show up and scare whoever was out there away. The night dragged on. I stayed up first, then woke Cody to switch. When he woke me again, it was dawn. We packed up fast. There was plenty of daylight now, but neither of us wanted to stay. We could have driven somewhere else and camped another night, but after that, no thanks. That was 6 years ago. Cody has invited me to go camping since, but I just can't, because people are terrifying. The sight of that head outside my tent, just staring straight out of a nightmare. I may never camp again. My dad used to tell me, don't be scared of ghosts. Fear the living. They can actually hurt you. Now I get it.